Welcome to Revenge Blaze, the channel, dedicated to raw, real stories of betrayal, justice, and breaking free from toxic situations. We dive deep into family drama, entitlement gone wrong, and the sweet taste of standing up for yourself when enough is enough. If you're new here, stick around, don't leave just yet. The story you're about to hear is one of the most intense and satisfying we've shared. It's gripping from start to finish, full of twists, heartbreak, and ultimate triumph. You won't want to miss a second. Without keeping you waiting any longer, here's today's story. He left me a New York empire, but my sibling's secret plan changed everything. I came home from the hospital with my pulse hammering in my throat, the envelope in my hand feeling heavier than my entire life up to that point. Grandpa had just passed, and in that quiet room after the last visitors left, his attorney had pressed it into my palm with one whispered sentence. "Read this somewhere safe, Iris." I hadn't opened it yet. I didn't need to. Months earlier, during one of our late-night calls when I was still buried in boardroom battles at the investment firm, Grandpa had already told me everything. Two manufacturing companies, solid, steady operations he'd built from nothing after the war, two historic mansions on Martha's Vineyard that could fetch millions in today's market, and the cherry on top, his prized 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS, sitting under cover in the garage, untouched for years. An empire most families only dream about. He chose me because I understood responsibility, because I knew how to keep my mouth shut. I pulled up to the old Philadelphia townhouse, the same narrow brick row house on Delancey Street, with the wrought iron railing, and the same faded green shutters my mother refused to repaint. The street was quiet, late afternoon light slanting across the cobblestones. I killed the engine, stepped out, and started toward the front door, keys already in my other hand. That's when I heard them. Voices drifting through the cracked parlor window, sharp, low, urgent. My older brother Pike, first, his tone clipped and impatient like always when money was on the table. "She's here." I saw her car pull up. My younger sister Poppy answered, softer but colder. "Good. Everyone stick to the plan. We stay calm, sympathetic. She's exhausted, long hours, grief, all that stress from the job. If we play this right, she'll sign whatever we put in front of her." I froze, mid-step on the stoop, knuckles hovering over the brass knocker. My breath caught. Then my cousin Mace chimed in, his voice smooth the way it gets when he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. "The doctor's coming tomorrow morning. He owes me a favor from that clinic deal last year. He'll do the evaluation, write the note we need. Fatigue, confusion, questionable decision-making. Oversight. Just until things settle." Pike laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Once it's in place, she can't touch a dime without our approval. We sell one of the plants, liquidate the Vineyard houses, flip the Porsche. Pays off everything, my markers. Poppy's loans, the refinance mess on this house. Clean slate." My mother's voice cut through, quiet but firm. "It's for her own good. She's never been good with family decisions anyway." The words hit like ice water down my spine. They weren't talking about helping me grieve. They were talking about taking control before I could even tell them what Grandpa had actually left me. My fingers tightened around the envelope so hard the paper crinkled. I could walk in right now. I could throw the truth in their faces and watch everything shatter. But something Grandpa once said echoed louder than the blood roaring in my ears. "Timing is everything, Iris. Silence isn't weakness, it's the weapon." I lowered my hand from the door, took one slow breath, then another. When I finally pushed it open, I stepped inside, wearing the exact expression they expected: hollow, grieving, worn thin. What I heard next on that stoop terrified me to my core. If you've ever felt the ground shift under you when the people who are supposed to love you most start counting your money instead, stick around. This story gets darker, and I'm just getting started. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens when I finally decide to fight back. You're not alone in this kind of betrayal. Let's walk through it together. I let the door close behind me with a soft click, the familiar smell of polished wood and old books hitting me like a memory I didn't want. My mother Edna was the first to reach me, arms already open, face arranged in perfect concern. "Oh, Iris, honey," she said, pulling me into a hug that felt rehearsed. "You must be drained. Come in, sit down." I allowed myself to be guided to the parlor sofa, the same stiff velvet one that had been there since I was a kid. I sank into it, shoulders rounded, eyes down, letting my voice come out thin. "It's been a long day," I murmured. My father Dwight stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. He didn't hug me. He never did. Just a nod, the kind that said he was assessing damage. Pike dropped into the armchair across from me, phone in hand, but eyes sharp. Poppy hovered near the fireplace, folding her arms like she was trying to look supportive. Mace leaned against the wall, casual, but I caught the quick glance he exchanged with Pike. "We're all here for you," Edna said, sitting beside me and covering my hand with hers. Her grip was warm, possessive. "Whatever Grandpa left, we'll figure it out together. You don't have to carry this alone." I nodded slowly, keeping my face blank. The attorney mentioned some paperwork. It sounded complicated. Pike leaned forward. "Complicated how? Debts, taxes." I hesitated just long enough. From what he said, there might be outstanding taxes on the companies, legal fees piling up. The mansions have maintenance costs I didn't expect. And the car? It's beautiful, but the insurance alone is insane. Honestly, it might be more burden than anything. Silence landed heavy. Poppy's mouth tightened. Pike's thumb stopped scrolling. Mace shifted his weight, eyes flicking to Edna. Dwight cleared his throat. "How much are we talking? I don't have exact numbers yet," I said quietly. "But it could take months to sort. Maybe even longer if there are liens." Edna squeezed my hand. "Oh, sweetheart. That's too much for one person. Especially after everything you've been through, those endless work hours, the pressure, losing him so suddenly." Poppy stepped closer. "We can help. You know we want what's best for you." I looked up at her, letting my voice waver. "I just don't know what to do right now. I feel overwhelmed." That was all it took. Pike sat back, trying to look relaxed. "Look, sis, if it's that bad, maybe we should get ahead of it. Sell off what we can. The plants aren't exactly booming anymore. Labor costs, supply chain issues. One good offer and we clear the taxes." Poppy nodded quickly. "And the Vineyard houses? They're sitting empty most of the year. We could list one, use the cash to cover everything else. Even the Porsche collectors are paying crazy money for those classics right now." Mace smiled, smooth as ever. "Smart move. Liquidate the non-essentials, pay down the refinance on this place before the bank gets serious. You'd be free of the headache, Iris. We'd handle the details so you don't have to." Edna patted my knee. "Exactly. We're family. We protect each other." I kept my eyes on the rug, tracing the pattern with my gaze. Inside, something cold and hard settled into place. They weren't asking questions about Grandpa's wishes. They weren't offering condolences. They were already dividing the spoils before I'd even confirmed what was there. I let out a small, tired breath. Maybe you're right. It does sound like too much. Pike's eyes lit up for a split second before he caught himself. "We'll talk to the attorney tomorrow. Get everything straightened out." Poppy smiled softly. "You rest tonight. We've got you." Mace pushed off the wall. "I'll make some calls. See what the market looks like for the plants and the houses." Dwight finally spoke, voice low. "Good. One step at a time." They moved around me like a well-rehearsed team, Edna fetching a glass of water I didn't ask for, Poppy adjusting a throw pillow behind my back, Pike disappearing toward the kitchen with his phone already out. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, letting them believe I was breaking. Letting them think the weight of the burden was crushing me. But every word they said was another piece of evidence. Every eager suggestion was another crack in their mask. They wanted the empire Grandpa built, and they were willing to frame it as concern to get it. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing steady. The game had just started, and they had no idea I was already playing to win. The next morning arrived too quickly. Sunlight sliced through the parlor blinds as I came downstairs in yesterday's sweater, hair pulled back, moving slowly like someone still carrying yesterday's weight. Edna was already in the kitchen setting out coffee and toast. She smiled when she saw me. "You're up early, Iris. Sleep okay?" "Some," I said, accepting the mug she handed me. Pike and Mace were at the table scrolling phones. Poppy stood by the window, arms crossed. Dwight was nowhere in sight, probably in his study avoiding the scene. The doorbell rang at exactly 10. Edna hurried to answer it, posture straightening like she'd rehearsed this moment. Dr. Albert Mills stepped inside, mid-50s, gray suit, calm professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. He carried a slim leather folder and shook Edna's hand first. "Mrs. Dunn, good to see you again. And this must be Iris." I stayed seated, nodding once. "Dr. Mills." He took the chair opposite me, opening the folder. "Your family has expressed some concern about how you've been coping since your grandfather's passing. The long hours at work, the grief it can add up. I'm just here to talk, make sure you're okay." Edna hovered behind me. "We're so worried, doctor. She's been quiet, distant. Not eating much." Poppy added softly. "She mentioned last night it all feels overwhelming." Mace leaned in. "We just want to know she can handle things clearly." Dr. Mills nodded gravely. "Let's start simple. Can you tell me today's date?" I answered correctly, voice flat. "The day of the week." Again correct. He moved on. "Any trouble sleeping?" Racing thoughts. Difficulty focusing. I let my gaze drop. "Sometimes." He jotted something down. "And decision-making. Do you feel confident right now about big choices like what to do with your grandfather's estate?" I paused, then looked up at him directly. "I've handled multi-million-dollar deals under tighter deadlines than this. I think I'm fine." The room stilled. Edna laughed lightly. "She's always been independent, doctor." But Dr. Mills kept his eyes on me. "Independence is good, but grief can cloud judgment. A short period of support, someone to help guide decisions, might be wise." I set the coffee mug down carefully. "You mean oversight?" He blinked. "It can be framed that way?" "Yes." I straightened my spine, the tiredness draining from my posture like water off glass. "I've coordinated teams through market crashes, audited companies worth more than this entire block, and never once needed someone to guide my decisions. You were brought here under false pretenses. There's no emergency, no consent from me, and no medical basis for what you're suggesting." Poppy gasped. Iris. Dr. Mills closed his folder slowly. "I'm only trying to help." "Then help by leaving," I said evenly. "Now." He stood uncomfortable. Edna reached for his arm. "Doctor, please." He shook his head. "This is clearly a family matter. I'll see myself out." The front door closed behind him with a finality that echoed through the house. For a beat, no one spoke. Then Edna whirled on me. "What was that?" "Do you know how humiliating?" I cut her off, a voice steady. "What's humiliating is inviting a doctor to declare me unfit without my knowledge." Pike stood up fast. "You're overreacting. We were worried." "Worried?" I repeated. "Right." I reached into my bag and pulled out a single folded sheet, the summary page from Grandpa's attorney. No need for the full envelope yet. Before anyone says another word, I said you should know what Grandpa actually left. Their eyes locked on the paper. 2 manufacturing companies profitable with long-term contracts. 2 mansions on Martha's Vineyard, 1 historic, 1 modern, both waterfront. And his 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS, fully restored. Poppy's mouth fell open. Pike swore under his breath. Mace's face went slack for a second before he recovered. Edna's hand flew to her chest. Oh, Iris. She breathed, stepping closer, voice suddenly honeyed. That's incredible. Grandpa always knew you were special. Poppy forced a smile. Wow. Just wow. We're so happy for you. Pike recovered fastest grin sliding into place. Sis, this changes everything. We can help manage it, make sure it's protected. Mace nodded eagerly. Yeah, with that kind of value we need to be smart. Lawyers, accountants, the works. Let us take some of the load off. Edna reached for my hand again, eyes shining. We're proud of you, honey. Let us be there for you now. I folded the paper and slipped it back into my bag. Their faces had rearranged in seconds, concern flipped to celebration, suspicion to support. The shift was so seamless it almost impressed me. But I saw the calculation behind every smile. They hadn't changed. They'd just updated the script. And I was done reading from it. That afternoon, the house felt smaller. Every room seemed to shrink around me as they adjusted their approach. Edna suggested I hand over my phone just for a few hours so you can really unplug and unwind. I let her take it without argument, watching her plug it into the charger in the kitchen drawer like it was routine. Pike offered to keep an eye on things while I napped upstairs. When I came down for water, he was standing near the front door, keys to my car now in his pocket. Don't want you driving if you're tired, he said casually. Poppy stayed close, asking every 20 minutes if I needed anything, if I was okay, if I wanted company. Mace disappeared for a while, then returned with takeout Chinese from the place down the block, and insisted we all eat together as a family. I picked at the food, nodding when they spoke, murmuring agreements. They filled the silence with small talk, work updates, neighborhood gossip, anything to keep the atmosphere light. But their eyes kept drifting to me, measuring. By evening, the pattern was clear. No alone time, no unmonitored calls, no keys, no phone. They called it care. I called it containment. That night, I lay in the guest room, door cracked as always. No lock, never had been. The house settled into its familiar creaks, pipes, cooling floorboards, shifting the refrigerator, humming downstairs. Around 2 in the morning, voices drifted up from the kitchen, low, urgent, no pretense anymore. I slipped out of bed, barefoot, eased the door wider, and moved to the top of the stairs, staying in shadow. Pike first. She knows too much now. We can't wait. The attorney I talked to says we file for emergency oversight tomorrow. Cite the stress, the sudden windfall potential for bad decisions. With Mill's note from this morning, even if she fought it, we get a hearing fast. Poppy's voice trembled slightly. But if she pushes back, she won't. Mace cut in. Not if we keep her isolated. No phone, no car, no outside contact. By the time she realizes the papers are filed, we get control of the companies. First, redirect the dividends, sell the mansions quietly. The Porsche can go to auction next month. Pike exhaled sharply. We need the cash now. My bookie's breathing down my neck, 25,000 outstanding from the last series. If I don't pay by end of week, it gets ugly. Poppy laughed bitterly. You think that's bad? My student loans are in default, co-signed with the bank, and they're threatening to garnish wages. Plus the townhouse refinance, we missed 3 payments already. The lender sent the final notice last month. If we don't clear at least 50 grand soon, they start foreclosure. Edna's voice quieter but firm. We can't let that happen. This is our chance. Iris doesn't need all of it. She's got her career. We take what we need to stabilize, then step back. Mace snorted. Step back. Once we have oversight, we manage everything. She signs what we need or we extend it. Simple. Pike's chair scraped. Tomorrow we push harder. More unwind. More questions about her judgment. If she gets suspicious, we call it paranoia, another symptom. Footsteps moved toward the stairs. I retreated silently to my room, heart steady, mind racing. They weren't just greedy, they were desperate, and desperation makes people sloppy. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, replaying every word. Gambling debts, defaulted loans, missed mortgage payments. The townhouse, the one Grandpa had helped them refinance years ago, was on the brink. They saw Grandpa's empire as their lifeline, not a gift, a rescue. And they were willing to bury me under concern to get it. I didn't sleep after that. Instead, I planned, quietly, methodically, because the tighter they squeezed, the clearer my path out became. Morning light filtered through the guest room curtains as I sat on the floor behind the door back against the wall. The house was still quiet, everyone downstairs assuming I was sleeping in. I had slipped my phone from the kitchen drawer at 3 a.m. after the voices faded. It was fully charged now, hidden under the mattress. 1 bar of signal enough. I dialed the number Grandpa had made me memorize 6 months ago. It rang twice. Harlan Law Offices. This is Yara. Yara, it's Iris Dunn. A brief pause. Iris. I've been expecting your call. Your grandfather briefed me thoroughly. Are you safe? For now, I said quietly. They're moving fast. I need to lock everything down today. Already in motion, she replied, voice calm and precise. The irrevocable trust your grandfather set up is ready for final activation. Signatures can be digital secure link incoming in 30 seconds. Once executed, the company's income streams redirect immediately to the trust account. Dividends, payroll, vendor payments, all rerouted. No one else has access. The mansions and the Porsche are titled under the trust already. They can't be sold or liened without your approval as trustee. I opened the email on my phone screen, thumb hovering over the link. What about challenges? If they file. They can file, Yara said. But the trust is airtight, created months ago, funded minimally at setup, no recent changes that could be contested as undue influence. Any oversight petition will hit a wall, no evidence of incapacity, and your financial background works in our favor. I've drafted affidavits attesting to your competence. I click through, signing each page with the stylus on my finger. The confirmation email arrived instantly. Done, I told her. Good. Next evidence. Do you have notes? I've got notes from last night's conversation, timestamps, exact quotes on debts and the filing plan. I used the voice memo app while they talked in the kitchen. Nothing graphic, just facts. Send them encrypted. I'll log them with timestamps for chain of custody. If they escalate to court, this shows coercive intent and financial motive. Adult Protective Services will need the same packet if we call them. I forwarded the files, double-checking encryption. When do we pull the trigger on APS? Tomorrow at the latest, Yara said. Let them make one more move gives us stronger grounds for intervention. In the meantime, stay visible, but non-confrontational. No arguments, no demands for your phone back. Document everything: who takes your keys, who asks leading questions, who mentions unwind, like it's code for isolation. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. Understood. Iris, she added softer now. Your grandfather believed in you for a reason. This isn't just about assets. It's about protecting what he built and what you represent. You're doing exactly what he trusted you to do. The line clicked off. I deleted the call log, powered the phone down, and slid it back under the mattress. Then I stood, smoothed my sweater, and headed downstairs like nothing had changed. Edna was in the living room folding laundry. She looked up with that practiced smile. Feeling better a little, I said. Pike walked in from the hallway, coffee in hand. We were thinking you should take it easy today. No need to rush anything. Poppy appeared behind him. Yeah, sis. We can handle the calls to the attorney if you want. Mace lingered in the doorway. Or we could all sit down later, go over options together. I met each of their eyes in turn. Sure. Later. They exchanged quick glances, relieved perhaps, confident the net was still tightening. But the trust was sealed. The income was rerouted. The evidence was logged. Every minute they thought they were winning, they were handing me more ammunition. I poured myself coffee, stirred slowly, and waited. The next move was mine. By mid-morning, the pressure had thickened into something almost tangible. I waited until Edna stepped out to the market and Dwight retreated to his study. Pike and Mace were in the backyard arguing about something trivial, Poppy scrolling on her laptop in the living room. I slipped into the powder room off the hallway, locked the door, and pulled my phone from my pocket. The call to APS took less than 5 minutes. Clear, factual report of coercive control, withheld communications, restricted movement, suspected financial exploitation. The intake worker promised a visit within hours. They arrived at 2:30. Two officers, a woman in her 40s named Officer Ramirez, and a younger man, Officer Tate. Plain clothes badges clipped to belts, calm professional demeanor. Edna opened the door, smile faltering when she saw them. Adult Protective Services, Ramirez said. We received a report concerning Iris Dunn. May we come in? The living room filled quickly. Pike froze mid-step from the kitchen. Poppy closed her laptop. Mace appeared from the hallway, face draining of color. Dwight emerged from the study, last arms folded tight. I sat on the sofa, posture straight, hands visible on my lap. Ramirez took the lead. We're here to speak with Iris privately first, then the family. This is routine when we receive allegations of undue influence or restriction of autonomy. Edna stepped forward. There's been a misunderstanding. We're just worried about her after the loss. She's been through so much. Ramirez nodded neutrally. We'll hear everyone. Iris, can we start with you? I stood. Yes. We moved to the dining room for privacy. Officer Tate stayed with the family in the living room. Ramirez sat across from me at the table. She opened a notepad. Tell me what's been happening. I spoke evenly. Since I arrived after Grandpa's death, my phone was taken to help me unwind. Car keys were pocketed for safety. I've been followed or questioned every time I tried to leave the room alone. They arranged a doctor visit without my consent to assess my capacity. They've discussed filing for oversight to control decisions on the inheritance. Ramirez wrote steadily. Do you have evidence of these restrictions? I have notes with times and quotes from conversations I overheard. Also call logs showing attempts to reach outside help, blocked. She accepted the printed summary I'd prepared earlier. Timestamps, key phrases, no recordings mentioned yet. And your capacity. Any concerns about your own judgment? I manage high-stakes financial portfolios for a living. I've been fully independent for years. There's no medical history supporting incapacity. Ramirez closed her notepad. Thank you. I'd like to speak with the family now. Back in the living room, the atmosphere had shifted to barely contained panic. Edna perched on the arm of the sofa, hands clasped. Pike paced near the window. Poppy sat rigid, eyes wide. Mace leaned against the wall, jaw tight. Dwight remained standing, silent. Ramirez addressed them collectively. We have allegations of restricting Iris's phone keys and movement without her consent. Also, arranging medical evaluations without her agreement. Can you explain? Edna spoke first, voice trembling. We were worried for her well-being. She seemed overwhelmed. We only wanted to help. Pike jumped in. It's not restriction, it's protection. She's grieving, stressed from work. We thought giving her space to unwind was best. Poppy nodded quickly. We love her. We'd never hurt her. Mace added. The doctor was just a check-in. Nothing formal. Ramirez looked at each in turn. And the phone. The keys. Edna hesitated. We thought she might drive distracted. We were going to give them back today. Officer Tate asked. Has Iris asked for them back? Silence. Pike shifted. She hasn't really asked. I spoke then, calm. I asked twice, yesterday. Both times I was told to unwind more. Ramirez turned to the family. Withholding personal property and communication without consent can constitute coercive control, especially when tied to financial matters. Iris reports discussions of legal oversight to manage her inheritance. Edna's face paled. We never, Pike interrupted. That was just talk. We were brainstorming. Mace tried to smile. Family discussion. Nothing filed. Ramirez raised a hand. We'll need to verify that. Iris, do you feel safe continuing here? Yes, I said. But I intend to leave soon. I've secured my assets independently. The word secured landed like a stone. Pike's eyes narrowed. Poppy's breath caught. Edna reached for Dwight's arm. Mace looked away. Officer Tate spoke quietly. We'll follow up with a report to the court if needed. For now, Iris's property must be returned immediately. No further restrictions without due process. Ramirez handed Edna a card. If there's any retaliation or continued interference, call us. They left shortly after. The door closed and the room exploded. Edna rounded on me first. You called strangers into our home. Pike advanced a step. What the hell? Iris Poppy's voice cracked. How could you do this to us? Mace stayed silent, but his fists clenched. I stood slowly. I did what was necessary. Dwight finally spoke low and cold. You've destroyed this family. I met his gaze. No. You did that when you decided my grief was an opportunity. The silence that followed was thicker than any before. They stared at me. Shock, anger, fear, all mixed. I walked upstairs to pack. No one stopped me. I left the next morning without ceremony. The bag was already packed from the night before. I walked downstairs, keys in hand, returned the previous evening under APS supervision, and headed straight for the front door. No one blocked my path. Edna stood in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. Pike watched from the living room doorway, jaw set. Poppy hovered near the stairs, silent. Mace was absent, probably avoiding the scene. Dwight remained in his study, door closed. I paused at the threshold. I'm going. Don't follow. Don't call unless it's a genuine emergency. Anything else goes straight to my attorney. Edna opened her mouth, then closed it. I stepped outside. The door shut behind me with a quiet finality. The drive to the ferry terminal took 3 hours. I kept the radio off, windows cracked, letting the highway noise fill the silence. By late afternoon, I was on the boat to Martha's Vineyard, the island rising on the horizon like a promise kept. The mansion I chose was the smaller of the two, Cape Cod-style gray shingles, wide porch facing the Atlantic. Grandpa had always preferred it for its quiet. I let myself in with the key from the trust packet. The air inside smelled of salt and polished pine. I dropped my bag in the foyer and walked through the rooms slowly. Sun poured across hardwood floors, highlighting dust motes that hadn't been disturbed in months. The kitchen still had his coffee mugs in the cabinet. The study held shelves of old ledgers from the companies. I sat at the desk and opened my laptop. First call was to Yara. I'm here. Assets confirmed, secure, everything's locked, she said. Income from both plants is now routing to the trust account. No unauthorized access. The board minutes from last quarter are digitized, sent to you. You're the sole trustee. I thanked her and hung up. Next, I emailed the plant managers, one in Pennsylvania, one in Ohio. Brief, professional. Iris Dunn here, new trustee. Schedule video calls this week. Provide current financials, employee rosters, pending contracts. No changes without my approval. Responses came within the hour. Polite, efficient. They'd been expecting transition since Grandpa's health declined. I spent the evening reviewing spreadsheets. Revenue steady but margins thinning on supply costs. Workforce loyal, turnover low, benefits intact. No layoffs planned. I made notes, audit suppliers, negotiate better terms, invest in equipment upgrades, keep jobs secure. The next day, I walked the grounds, ocean wind, sharp grass still green despite fall. I stood on the bluff watching waves crash and felt the first real breath in weeks. No footsteps behind me, no questions, no eyes measuring. Messages started arriving that evening. Poppy first, Iris, please. We need to talk. This isn't fair. I forwarded it to Yara without reply. Pike. Next. You're really doing this, cutting us off after everything forwarded. Edna. We're your family. Come home. Let's fix this. Forwarded. Mace tried once, call me. We can work something out. Forwarded. By the third day, the tone shifted: anger, accusations, guilt trips. I set up a filter: all done family emails, auto forward to Yara, auto delete from my inbox, phone numbers blocked, social media restricted, no more contact. I hired a local property manager for the second mansion, keep it maintained, rented seasonally for income. The Porsche stayed garaged here. I had no intention of selling. It was Grandpa's, not leverage. Weeks turned into routine. Mornings reviewing plant reports. Afternoons video calls with supervisors, questions, direct decisions clear. Evenings walking the beach, planning expansions. New contracts, employee training programs, sustainability upgrades. The companies weren't trophies, they were responsibilities. Jobs for hundreds. Supply chains. Community ties. I ran them the way Grandpa taught: steady, transparent, fair. One afternoon, Yara called with an update. They tried filing for oversight last week. Petition dismissed, lack of evidence, conflicting affidavits from APS visit. No grounds. I exhaled slowly. And the townhouse foreclosure notice issued. They're scrambling for buyers or loans. Pike's debts are public record now, creditors circling. I didn't feel triumph, just closure. They had chosen this path. I chose mine. I stood on the porch as the sun dipped low, ocean glittering gold. The weight I'd carried since the hospital had lifted, not gone, but lighter. Boundaries weren't punishment. They were protection. And for the first time in years, I was finally protected. Months passed on the island, and the distance grew absolute. I no longer checked the filtered folder. The messages had stopped after the initial barrage, replaced, I learned later through Yara, by silence born of necessity. The townhouse went into foreclosure in early spring. The bank listed it publicly. Photos of the familiar brick facade appeared on real estate sites, price slashed to attract quick buyers. Edna and Dwight had tried refinancing again, but with missed payments stacking and credit scores tanked, no lender touched it. Pike's gambling debts surfaced in court filings, creditors obtained judgments, wage garnishments, started on whatever irregular work he picked up. He lost his apartment lease. Friends posted vague updates about him crashing on couches. Poppy's co-signed loans defaulted fully. Collection calls turned aggressive. Her name appeared in credit reports as high risk. She moved out of state briefly, rumor had it, chasing lower rent and new starts that never quite materialized. Mace fared no better. His connections dried up when word spread about the failed oversight attempt. Clients pulled away. His small consulting side hustle folded. Last Yara heard he was facing civil suits from people he'd promised favors to in exchange for help with the family plan. They never reached out again after the court dismissal. No apologies, no explanations, just absence. I didn't celebrate their fall. I simply observed it from afar, like watching a storm pass over distant water. Life on Martha's Vineyard settled into a rhythm that felt earned. I flew to the plants, quarterly walked factory floors, met supervisors, listened to workers. I approved raises tied to performance-funded safety upgrades, expanded apprenticeship programs. Revenue climbed steadily. Margins improved without cutting corners. The companies weren't just surviving, they were growing under clear leadership. The second mansion rented consistently to vacationers' income, feeding the trust for maintenance and reinvestment. The Porsche sat undercover in the garage, driven occasionally on empty island roads, never sold, never leveraged. I volunteered with a local nonprofit helping older adults navigate financial exploitation. I spoke at small group sessions, sharing just enough how to spot coercion disguised as care, how to document restrictions, when to call APS. I never named my family. The story stayed general, powerful in its anonymity. Nights were quiet. I read Grandpa's old ledgers by lamplight, tracing his handwriting, feeling the weight of his trust. He hadn't left me an empire to hoard. He left it to someone who would steward it responsibly. And I did. This story isn't just about inheritance or betrayal, it's about the quiet power in recognizing when love turns into leverage. The real value here, the reason I'm sharing it, is to remind you that you don't owe anyone your vulnerability, your decisions, or your future. Family can be the safest place on earth, but when it becomes a source of control, the bravest thing you can do is draw the line. Protect yourself without guilt. Set boundaries without apology. Seek help when concern starts feeling like chains. You are not obligated to stay in a relationship that demands your silence or your assets in exchange for belonging. Strength isn't always confrontation. It's often the calm choice to walk away and rebuild on your own terms. If my experience gives even one person the courage to say no to manipulation or the clarity to call for help before it's too late, then telling it was worth every hard moment. Thank you for listening all the way through. Thank you for giving this story your time and your attention. I hope it brought you something useful, maybe validation, maybe a warning, maybe just the reminder that you're stronger than the roles others try to assign you. From the bottom of my heart, stay healthy, stay safe, and may good fortune find you in places where trust is earned, not demanded. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences anonymously if you prefer, or suggestions for what kind of family drama you'd like to hear next. Your feedback helps me shape these stories to be even more impactful. And if you know someone who might need to hear this, someone doubting their own instincts or trapped in similar concern, please share the video. Sometimes the right story at the right time changes everything. You're not alone. You never have to give up your power to belong. Until next time, take care of yourselves.